it was all kept very, very. Good morning. Hello. Got to be very careful what I say now because we're back in the woods and everything like that. But I'm going to take you to where the plantation was cut down in a minute, which is so we can actually see different, yeah, the, the forest healing itself. Um, but in 2009, there was a meeting of the world's richest people. I think it was in Washington, actually. And the meeting was headed up by a certain Mr. William Gates. Um, and the subject of the conference was the world's population and eugenics. And it was decided in this, they never published this, but I mean, there are people that have sort of leaked documents and things like that from it. But it was decided that the world's population was too large and growing too quickly, and they had to, by hook or by crook, they were going to reduce the world's population down to a manageable level. Now, there's been sort of like ideas amongst the super rich for this going on for donkey's years, really, since the 70s. And they were discussing methods of doing it. And one of the methods was by injection. And so far, I mean, in the last 2 years, I mean, an awful lot of the world's population have been injected. And yeah, we do not know nobody knows for real what the reason was for injection of those people, because it definitely wasn't for something which is not much different than a common cold. I think and there's all these sort of like, I don't hate to call them conspiracy theories, but there's all these theories going around about what the injection contains, and nothing's good, and it seems to contain an awful lot of different chemicals and things like that, and spike proteins, and what's that? Graphene, and all this graphene or whatever it's called, and all that stuff, like in things that affect the immune system, and it renders the recipients vulnerable to outside diseases and other things. And we do have a sort of like a real lot of people nowadays. I mean, I know of quite a few people who have passed unexpectedly. I mean, with this sudden adult death syndrome, and things like that, of cancer, and blood clots, heart attacks. It just seems to be, and they're just trying to pass it off as normal. But I think that was phase one, I think, to be quite honest, of their plan, which was to get everybody injected, and then the once they got everybody injected, they've weakened their immune systems. They've rendered, as I said, rendered them vulnerable to anything that comes out their way, and also their blood and their whole systems are not working properly. But I think phase two is going to be the big one, and phase two, I think, is starvation. It's famine. Yeah, they can create famine, and if you look at sort of like news reports globally, and with using the Ukraine war as a sort of like an excuse for lack of wheat and what have you. Mind you, I can't eat an awful lot of wheat. I did eat a loaf of bread yesterday, but I've got to stay off it now for the next. I'm all right if I have it once a week or something like that, but not too much. But anyway, It's the Lyme disease, that one. Renders you eating wheat really, really difficult. But if it looks like I mean, even they're even advertising it on mainstream media that there's food shortages looming. Now, one of the things that you got to look for, if you know your history, and if you look through history, and this is an ancient track. This is, by the way, talking history. This track is ancient. Um, this particular track here, we're going to be turning off this track. Yeah, this is really, really old. This could be thousands of years old, this track. But the one we're turning on is going to be new because it was literally made and cut into the hillside so they could crop the trees that they planted. But anyway, when famine happens, so does war. And when, but you're talking about war on a general level, not on a war like the Russians doing a military operation in Ukraine with a big army and everything like that. You're talking war like, basically between streets and things like that, because people fight over resources. Most human sort of like conflicts over history, apart from the family squabbles of the royal families, have been fundamentally over resources. And when you remove resources, so resources become scarce, then people will fight over that whatever small resources they have. And here we are at a crossroads. Literally, this is a crossroads. These are very, very small byways and passageways that did not exist. Well, they existed for years. Sorry about that. They existed for years, but when the advent of the motor car and everything like that, they tarmacked several roads, but these were so small and so unused that they didn't bother tarmacking them. So they're just little byways. It's a nice one. And we'll go up here, get to the plantation. Yeah, so most wars are over the availability of food. When food becomes scarce, people will scrap. And this is why a lot of people are sort of like are talking about prepping and everything, because you've got to be able to feed yourselves. And I've seen sort of like videos of thousands upon thousands of dead cows in America. Now, I don't know the authenticity of these videos. I don't know when they were taken. I don't know anything about them at all. So I don't know their veracity. I can't speak for their veracity or anything like that. But if you remove the supply chain, you attack the supply chain food by increasing fuel prices, and you sort of like the geopolitical situation is created that wheat and grain is not being transported into the west or into the thing, and you're going to have sort of like famine across the northern hemisphere as well as around the world. Basically, you're going to have it completely around the world. Famine, which is going to cause a lot of unrest and a lot of so the depopulation agenda. I'm not talking about the majority of people won't starve to death. I think the majority of us will die in conflict with other people fighting over resources. So prepare, arm yourself. In a situation where nobody really has any guns, like in Britain, the majority of people don't have guns. Here's where they cut the plantation down. The man with the crossbow can be king. You see what I mean? Here we are. This little young birch coming up, growing up out of, I think this was all pine and everything like that. And they cut them all down and took them all away and sold them for money. And they cut this big sort of track through to get the machinery through so they could do things. It's about 7-8 years ago that they did that. And this is 7-8 years later. But a couple of months ago, these bunch of scruffy hippies came through and planted, as I said, about 10,000 trees. And down in there is a young tree. If I can get to it, there it is. I don't know if I can get any focus on it, but down in there is a young tree. I don't know how long these things, I don't know if they have to come and take those away, take those off after a while, or if they just burst through the top and just pop, just pop it away, as you can see. And these guys, I spoke to these guys, they were really quite, they were quite lovely. They were from, they were obviously sort of like very woke and very thing, but they, they were, at least they were actually physically going out and doing something positive. And I don't know who's funding that, anything like that, but they were working on a project for rewilding. Now, the rewilding project does sound sort of like really, oh, how noble and how wonderful and how sort of gorgeous. It rewilds on its own as well. Look at these. These have all grown up since they cropped all the other trees. They left a couple just for whatever reason. And there you go. There's a crop tree. And but I think the rewilding is preparing the world for when we've all gone. I think the elite would like to sort of like have the world. So do prepare. Famine is coming, an engineered famine, which is not a man-made famine, not a God-made famine, not a natural famine. It's going to be man-made. And I think an awful lot of famines throughout history were man-made, and it was used as a political thing to rid of certain people. But I think they're doing it on a global scale now. So, but the thing about it is they're trying not to scare the herd. They're not trying to get the herd to stampede. And one thing I am amazed at, the hike in the fuel prices, like for electricity and petrol and oil and everything like that. The lack of anybody sort of like doing anything about it. People aren't sort of like, normally I'd expect to see the French sort of like up in arms about it and everything like that, because the French get up in arms about everything. But you don't see it. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing anything. If it is happening, it might be suppressed. I don't know, but I'm not seeing anything. And so the herds are docile. That could be another byproduct of the injection. Yeah. Have been one of the other byproducts of the, well, I don't know whether it's a byproduct of the injection or not, but it has been mooted around sometimes by some people. Those ferns, look at that, they've taken over. Is that the injected seem to have lost ability to reason. They've seemed to have lost. So you meet people who are obviously injected, and you disagree with them over something, and they can't sort of like sit down and have a sensible conversation. They seem to go off the handle or run away really, really quickly. It's like, you know, negotiation, they don't seem to be able to negotiate or discuss. It's interesting. I just wondered if they were like that beforehand, or if that is a byproduct. Because I've seen a lot of rage from people who are, you know, about things, and you know, you try to discuss something with them. I tried to discuss the Ukraine situation with somebody who'd been vaccinated yesterday. Like, and they when I said something, it wasn't sort of like with the thing, like, you know, saying that I was just commenting that perhaps everything we're being told on the mainstream media is bollocks, which it is anyway. But I was just pointing that fact out, and this person just a normal, you know, from a normal conversation, got got away and ran away, and then came back, then ran away, then came back, and they couldn't control themselves. Yeah, they had no actual sort of like argument with me to say that, you know, you're wrong. This is that. This is that. This is that. Which is I can tolerate that. I can go with that. I can have that discussion with people. And but no, he ran away. He couldn't think, and basically couldn't even look at me then. Couldn't make eye contact anymore. Couldn't do anything like that. It was just sort of like it was like roid rage. Yeah, it's something to watch out for. Yeah, but do prepare. Do get in food. Get a stock of food in, and not all Twinkies. Have a good day.